morning, Miss Soulsby.
Yes, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Good. My name is Mel Quinn. I'm one of the PA students here at Piper University, and I'm just here to help out your dog today. Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, it took a while for me to
Right.
write that in. All right. Is there anything I can get for you before we get started?
Good right now.
Okay. All right. So what brings you in today?
So I'm right now pregnant. I missed my last period, but I did an at-home pregnancy test and it was negative, but I'm having all the same symptoms I did last time when I was pregnant. Last time I terminated my last pregnancy, so I'm a little scared. I know if I'm pregnant again, my parents will kill me. So I'm just really scared right now.
Okay. No, I totally understand. But before we get to anything, I do want to let you know that everything that we say here between us is going to stay between us. And unless you want me to share this information with anybody, it's going to stay just between me and you. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right. Good. Alrighty. So can you tell me more about what's going on with your life other than you thinking you're pregnant?
So I guess my biggest concern right now is that I don't know who the father would be.
Okay.
I've had multiple partners over the last 6 months. Another thing I'm kind of concerned about is that I do drink alcohol sometimes and sometimes smoke marijuana, so I don't know if that would affect the baby at all.
Okay.
So those are also some of my concerns.
Okay. I understand. And just to address a couple of those, so yes, if you were smoking marijuana or smoking cigarettes and drinking, those are all do affect your pregnancy. You are pretty early along, so I'm sorry, so if we do have the results from your pregnancy test and it
Okay.
did come back that you are pregnant.
Okay.
Alright, so just take a moment to take that in. Alright.
Okay.
And so based on the results and based on your last menstrual cycle that you let my nurse know about, which I have here that it was on the 7th of February, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so based on that, your due date is about November 13th and you're about 7 weeks along. Okay?
Okay, it's just a lot to take in right now. I was really hoping I wasn't pregnant.
I understand. And it is a lot to think about, but we're going to discuss a few different things and I'll give you all the options laid out all in front of you so you can make an informed decision.
Okay. Thank
But
you.
you're welcome. And on top of that though, your urine test did come back in and I'm sorry to inform you, but you do have chlamydia. And we'll address that today as well. And the good thing about that though, I know it's not a good thing, but it is curable.
Okay.
So we'll go ahead and get you set up with everything, but I'll give you an option if you want to discuss your pregnancy first or do you want to go down the STD route first?
We can talk about my pregnancy first. That'd be fine. Thank you.
Okay, gotcha. So your biggest concern right now is letting your mom know about it or?
Yeah, either of my parents. I just think, especially this being the second time, I'm just petrified to tell them. Like, I really think my mom would kick me out. My dad would probably kill whoever the father is, and that's another thing. I don't even know who the father is, so it's just a lot going on right now.
I understand. So I see in your past history that you were pregnant before, when you were 15. Did your parents help you through that?
Yes.
They did?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it didn't end well. I had a surgical procedure and I ended up having a hemorrhage and was hospitalized. And
oh my goodness.
so yeah, so I'm a little scared because obviously right now financially I wouldn't be able to support a child. So I think abortion would be my only option right now.
That's what you're leaning towards. Okay, I understand. So those are your thoughts right now. So like I said, all of this is confidential. But I do want to let you know that a lot of times whenever teenage girls are going through this, that it's a lot more helpful when they have a support system behind them. I know you said that you're scared that your mom is going to be upset with you. Do you have anybody else in your family or someone that you can speak to, a counselor?
Well, I only live with my mom and her siblings. My dad's an alcoholic, so for the past 6 months he's been out of the house. So yeah, I would say my only option if I did talk to someone would have to be my mother.
Okay, all right. And all right, so a lot of times it can seem that your mom or your dad or whoever that you may want to speak to may not support you or you think they're going to be upset with you. But from my previous experience, I think it's a really good idea to let them know because a lot of times that may be the case that they get upset at first, but at the end of the day, they just want what's best for you and your health. And this is something to think about. I know this is a lot right now, but I do want to plant that seed in your head and let you know that may be the best thing to do is to go through
I'll
this,
definitely
okay?
think about it.
Okay, so let's go ahead and discuss some of your options that you have. So Option one, obviously, you can keep the baby and raise it to term. Of course, that is going to be hard. I know you're in high school, you're a senior, you're about to graduate, and I know that you said that you wanted to go to college. So, and that would be amazing. And of course, having a child would make that a little bit more difficult, or actually a lot more difficult. But not to say that it can't be done. Another option you have is to keep the baby and perhaps put it up for adoption or have a family member take care of it. And then the final option would be to terminate the pregnancy. So you do have some history with that. So do you want to know a little bit more about which options you have as far as having the abortion?
Yeah, I think still the best option for me would be terminating it. Do you know who I would go to that and what I would do and kind of like the risks of it?
Right, of course, yes. So first off, I do want to let you know there is a law here in North Carolina that if you were to get to terminate your pregnancy, you would have to go through 72 hours of counseling first. And then after that, if you still decide to want to go ahead and have an abortion, then you can go into like Planned Parenthood or like a women's clinic to do that. All right. So right now you're about 7 weeks along, which will put you in the timeline that you can still get. You have a few options.
Okay.
Option one is to get a medical. They call it a medical abortion. So it's a couple of pills, and basically the pills. One of them is going to make it so that your body doesn't support the pregnancy anymore. The second pill is gonna help your body expel the pregnancy.
Okay.
And that's the first one. And the second one, you have the option of a surgical procedure. So you go under some general anesthesia or some local anesthesia, and then they go and they open up your the opening up to your uterus, and then they take the endometrium out, which is what lines your uterus,
Okay.
and then that's how they take
Yeah, I
care
think
of
that's
the
what
abortion.
my last abortion was.
That was okay.
The surgical side. So I
Yes.
think I'll leaning more towards the medical abortion.
The medical
that
one.
sounds more doable.
Okay.
Especially I'm still in the right time frame for that.
You are, but however, with both of these options, you do have to, since you are 17, you do have to have a parent or a guardian with you.
Okay. So I probably should
Yes.
talk to my mom.
Yes, and if you ever feel like you're in danger, if you were to speak with your mom about this, you do have the option of going to a judge and having them overrule that so that you can do this without the parent. But that's another step for you to take, and we can get into that if you would like.
Yeah, I think it's just gonna be difficult to do this alone. I know how hard it was last time, so I do think the best option would be talking to my mom about it, and hopefully she'll be understanding.
I feel that way. I agree with that 100%. And even if your mom isn't behind you, just know that I'm here for you.
Thank
and
you.
if you ever need to come in to speak to somebody, we can set up an appointment and see what our other options are as well, okay?
Thank you.
Of course.
And then for the chlamydia, do you mind telling me what I need to do for that?
Of course. So we're going to go ahead and get started with treatment for that right away, because we want to treat that as soon as we can. If this goes on for any longer, after a certain amount of time, you can develop something called pelvic inflammatory disease, and in the future that's really bad for your sexual health. You may not be able to have kids in the future if this progresses, okay? All right, so we're gonna do a treatment. It's a 1-dose treatment. It's 500 milligrams of an antibiotic called azithromycin. Do you have any allergies that you're aware of?
No.
No, okay. All right, so I'll go ahead and get that put into the system, and we'll get you started with that right away. With this, it is a reportable disease, so I have to report this to the state, and we have to let all your sexual partners know about it. Do you have their contact information so that you can make them all aware?
I do, but do I have to?
So it's best if you do. If you feel like you can't do it, then if you give us all their names, the state will reach out to them
Okay.
and let them know that they have to come in for treatment.
Okay.
Okay, but we'll get that from you before we conclude today. But before we finish up, I did want to talk to you about the risks of having an abortion as well, though.
Okay.
Before you make up your mind. But so the risk that comes with it, so you may hemorrhage like the first time. And I think because you did have hemorrhage the first time, you are at higher risk this time. And then on top of that, you have risk of infection and damage to your cervix and other organs that surround your cervix. Okay.
Okay.
Just to let you know, I want you to have all your options and know what's going on with you before we conclude
Thank
here.
you. This is a lot to take in right now. So.
I understand. I know it is. And so I do want to talk to you about prevention for the future. So until our next follow-up, where we're gonna see how you're doing and we're gonna retest you to make sure that the medication I gave you today is gonna work.
Okay.
Okay. I do want you to sustain from any sexual activity until then, because even if you're still doing your course of antibiotics, you can still pass it on. So we want you to sustain until then, and if you do decide to have sex in the future, which I'm sure is something to consider, you want to be able to protect yourself. You don't want this to happen again, and
Yeah, I don't.
from your history, you know, you've had this, and then you've had this STD, and then you've also had another pregnancy in the past. It can cause a little bit of trauma to your body, and in the future, your sexual health might be at risk. Okay. So in the future, if you need to use you should use condoms, and if you are not financially able to do that, the Planned Parenthood does have those for free.
Okay.
Okay. So it's
Thank
something
you.
to consider. And let's see here. So you told me that you were a smoker and a drinker. So I think I have all your information that we need. Would you like me to set up the appointment to go to the counselor?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. So
Thank
I'll
you.
go ahead and get that in order, and I'll go ahead and put your medications in. And then after you get your counseling from the state mandated, you can go to Planned Parenthood from there.
Okay.
Okay.
And then
Now,
how
do
do
you-
I make that appointment?
We'll get you set up with that.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
I'll have all that information for you at the front. And then, do you have any questions for me?
No, this is it. Thank you.
Really? Okay. Is there anything else that we can do for you before we wrap up?
No, I think you answered all my questions. I appreciate it.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Well, it was really nice to see you today.
Yes.
All right.
Have a
Thank
good one. You too.